Hey everyone, Andy Howell here with the Columbus Way, bringing you actually the second edition of our series called Over the Top, where we look at local Columbus residents and take a look at the obstacles that they've overcome in their life. So today I'm here with fellow Columbus Way member Kristen and Auel, and thanks for sitting down with me today. So last Friday I did my typical Friday promo no post where anybody in the group can promote whatever they want, and you had posted in there, hey, please support my Pelotonia. Pelotonia, it's been about a year. You've been cancer free. Yep. Great care at the James, and so that caused me to reach out to you and say, hey, I think it's super important that people make themselves vulnerable enough to talk about their these common experiences that everybody has, and cancer's touched almost everybody in some part of their life. So I just wanted to thank you for sitting down with me and ask, like, when did you start noticing something was off with your health, or how did everything come about?
So I'd say it was probably in about November to December of, so that would have been 2017. Yeah, that I started noticing little things. It wasn't anything major. I didn't really think anything of it, and then slowly they just started to get worse. So I just
like headaches or like lethargy, or
so a little bit of lethargy, but it was more of I had cervical cancer. So it was more just issues, like female issues.
Sure.
And so
Sure.
So I went ahead and made an appointment with a gynecologist. Like, hey, like, don't really know what's going on. It was nothing major. And so I went, had the pap done and everything, and it came back, and she was like, oh, well, there's a little bit of this. It's probably no big deal, but like, let's do further testing just to make sure. And then it came back, and when she did the biopsy, she said she was concerned afterwards, and so I was kind of like, oh, okay, like this might be more than I thought.
Right.
And she made an appointment. She wanted me to come in to get the results. And so I was like, okay. And so I walked in, and there was just an empty desk that they sat me at, and it had just a box of tissues sitting on the desk.
Oh,
and I was
my
just
God.
like, oh no, like, and just, she was like, so, like, like, Kristen, you have cancer. And then, like, after that, I don't think I really even reacted to it. I was just kind of like, she said some other things. I didn't really, comprehend what she was saying.
Right.
I was just kind of trying to wrap my mind around it. And I know, like, once I left the appointment, all I did was I just text my sister, and I just said, not good news, it's cancer. And that was it. And so, like, I feel like most people, if you hear someone has cancer, like, it's almost like you think it's like a death sentence almost.
100%.
Like,
100%.
So I was just like, oh, like, what's gonna happen now? Like, oh my gosh. And
Tons of questions.
Yeah, she was the one who actually recommended the James. She actually, I think she said she was a fellow underneath the oncologist that I went to see, Dr. Solani. And she's like, I highly recommend her. Like, if it was my family, I would tell them to go there. And I was like, okay, perfect. And I was able to get in fairly quickly within like 2 weeks. I went in, and she did an exam and everything, and she diagnosed me. It was like stage 1B2. Okay. I don't really still know what all the numbers and letters and everything mean, but they basically said I could do a radical hysterectomy, but then most likely I would still need chemo and radiation after that, just because of the size of the tumor.
Wow.
They said, or you can just do radiation and chemo, and that should be all you need.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And she's like, my recommendation would just be you only have to do one thing, like the radiation and chemo. That way you don't have two major things happening.
Right. And
because at first I thought, oh, like, take everything out, you have no issues again, but that, like, won't cure it. It could still come back in other areas.
Right.
So
spread.
So.
Man.
Yeah.
So so initial reaction was kind of shut down emotionally.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know, I'm sure throughout the radiation and the treatment and everything, there's some physical challenges as well, but mentally, like, you came around. Like, how did you deal with that mentally? What was the self-talk to get you through keeping a positive attitude to deal with it?
I feel like I've just always been sort of hard-headed and like if something like faces me, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna, you know, beat it, like whatever it is. I grew up an athlete, so just kind of like that, you know, athlete mentality, competition mentality. And so I like, the hardest part for me was like telling people after I was first diagnosed and everything. I think face to face I told a handful of people. Probably the hardest one was I had to call my dad and tell him and everything, and he had no idea how to react. Like, he called his sister and was like, I don't know, she said this and this and I'm not even sure what it all means and everything. So and then I ended up just sort of posting about it on my Facebook, just because I was like, everyone's gonna find out eventually. Like, I need a way to let everyone know without people bombarding me with questions. So I just kind of posted it there, and then I actually started a blog so that anytime I had a checkup or after treatments or anything, I just updated that and I put all the information there. And I just told people, hey, if you need to know something, it'll be here. Please don't text me every day. Please don't, you know, call me. Like, that's going to bring me down more. I just want to, you know, face this, you know, get it over with. And it worked really well for me doing it that way.
Did you see that somewhere else? Did somebody suggest that to you, or you just kind of...
I think I just kind of came up with it just because, like I said, like, it was hard just to talk about, and putting it down in writing was so much easier for me than just having to tell the same story over and over, like 5 times a day, like all of that. So, and then like through treatment and everything, I still worked. I let my work know kind of what was going on, and they were real, you know, real lenient with me. Sort of was like, okay, you know, on these days I have to leave. So it was, radiation was 5 days a week and chemo was 1 day a week.
Wow.
So radiation, I would leave for about 2 hours. And most of that was just because it was the driving from up near Polaris downtown back up. Most of the time, because the radiation itself, like, I think was a couple minutes. So that took like no time at all. Yes. And then the chemo days, it was almost an all day thing. I was there for 4 to 5 hours probably on chemo days.
Okay. Wow. That's super intense. So I was, you know, not trying to stalk your face. Sorry guys, and we're back. I ran out of SD card. So I was gonna ask you, I was trying to not be too stalky and look at your Facebook profile, but more of like do some recon. And I saw one of your posts that mentioned that this past year you've been the happiest that you'd ever been. And I was just curious about that. Obviously you've gone through something, you were going through something really difficult. And like, so how did you, like, surface level, maybe odd thing, unexpected thing that people would say, but I mean, I think I understand where you're coming from. And talking to other people who have gone through hard things, but what, like, can you just talk about that statement?
So basically it was just, I feel like prior to my diagnosis, like, I was always stressed, whether it was work, whether it was other things outside, like you let so many little things bother you and ruin your day and stuff like that. And kind of once I got my diagnosis, I was like, you know, that small stuff doesn't matter, like work, it'll be there tomorrow, like stuff like that. Like, you shouldn't let that stuff get to you like it does. And I was really bad about that. Like, I was just, I mean, like, I love my job, but it had got to the point where I was almost feeling like I hated it. And since then I've just been kind of like, you know, things will come up and I'm like, you know what, that doesn't matter. Like, it's not worth me ruining my day worrying about this. And then just I'd already started it prior to my diagnosis, but I like to travel, and so I go on solo trips a lot. And so I've just been doing that more often. I think last year I finished my treatment in July, and then after that I went to Upper Michigan, I went to Vegas, I went to Florida, all before the end of the year. So I was just like, I couldn't do anything all summer, so I was like, I'm gonna let me get this fun in that I couldn't do, you know, while everything else was going on.
So I mean, it sounds like the hardship of cancer brought perspective, right?
Yes, definitely.
And so makes me think a lot of things that we're all worried about every day just really don't matter.
And it's like, like this saying, like, don't sweat the small stuff. Like, everyone hears it and you're like, like whatever, but like, it's kind of crazy that it takes something so hard and difficult for you to go through before you really realize like really this doesn't matter. Like I shouldn't be concerned about it.
It's like we always hear these sayings. Like I know my parents would have sayings, and I'd hear them one in one ear, out the other, and then you grow up a little and you're like, oh yeah, those were simple words, but they had a profound meaning. And
definitely.
So don't sweat the small stuff. I mean, everybody's heard that saying, and it's easy to say. And it's hard not to sweat the small stuff, though, unless you have something to give you a little bit better perspective, like going through cancer. So, I mean, what would you give? What are any advice that you would give somebody who had a friend or family member who's going through cancer on how to just best support them?
I think you sort of need to know what kind of person they are. So, like, for me, I just kind of wanted people to treat me like normal. Like, I don't want every conversation to be about cancer. I don't want, all of this. And then I know there's other people who just want that support all the time. They want, someone to be there. They want, and I was just kind of like, no, like, yeah, I'm going through this. I'm still the same person. Like, don't treat me any different.
Right.
So I think that for me, like I said, was the biggest. I put that out. I told all my family and friends, like, please don't, like, I know, like, I had a cousin who would kind of text me, and she's just like, I don't know how you're doing this. Like, I'd be going crazy, all of this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I know, but, like, I'm doing okay. Like, don't worry.
Right.
So.
Awesome. Well, I know that you're riding in Pelotonia. You rode your bike here, right? Just for people that don't know, could you just give, like, a few words on what Pelotonia is? And then, how they can maybe support you?
Yeah. So the Pelotonia is like a bike race, or not. Actually, it's not a race. They say it's a ride. So you're not racing. It's just you ride at a leisurely pace, and it's just sort of like a grassroots thing that was started. I think this is the 12th year that they've had it, and I think they said last year was their largest year they've ever had, and you're basically just choose a route that you're going to go. They have from 25 miles up to 200 miles. And every dollar that you raise, 100% of every dollar goes to cancer research. So that's awesome. Like unheard of in terms of, fundraising, stuff like that. Because they have corporate sponsors that cover all their overhead.
Okay, so that's how they do it.
So that's how they're able to do it. So,
Got it.
When you're donating to Pelotonia, you know that every single dollar is going to go to those funded research. And I can't remember I can't remember the specifics, but I know on the Pelotonia site they have a cert of researches that have gone on that have, made vast changes that are now have become the norm for treatment for certain kinds of cancer and everything. And it's all because of the money from Pelotonia that they are able to do that.
Yeah, awesome. So great cause, clearly. You've got links and stuff that people can donate. Guys, I'll put those down low if you want to help support Kristen. But thanks for I guess sitting down with me and telling your story. I appreciate it. And guys, thanks for watching. If you know of anybody who's gone through something hard in life and you think it would inspire others to hear about it, I'd love to talk to you. But thanks for watching. See you next time.